Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Ad America TV. Hi, I'm Maya Trainer. I'm one of the guides here at Ad America, and we welcome our audience joining us online. We truly hope that you are doing well and staying safe amidst this outbreak. Well, anyway, for those of you who are first timers here, hi, welcome to Ad America TV for the first time. Ad America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center. Our mission is to provide a space for young generations of Indonesia to learn more about the United States. We have temporarily moved to a solely digital platform so you can enjoy our program from the comfort of your own home and help flatten the curve of COVID-19. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment box below, and our panelists will answer them later in the seminar. On today's episode, we will be having a session titled Black History Month, AFS Film Screening, She Did That. A friendly reminder for all of you as continuation of our 10th anniversary celebration and Black History Month in February, we are having a very special activities with a giveaway this month. In this giveaway, we will be giving out an iPhone 12 Pro. Wow! So make sure to stay tuned till the end of this event to know how to participate. Now, in the meantime, I will break the ice a little bit with our social media quiz. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. Our question of the day is, which American president declared February as Black History Month? Is it A, Barack Obama, B, Bill Clinton, C, Abraham Lincoln, or D, Gerald Ford? I will repeat the question one more time. Listen carefully. Which American president declared February as Black History Month? Is it A, Barack Obama, or B, Bill Clinton, C, Abraham Lincoln, or D, Gerald Ford? You can participate this quiz through our social media comment section and stay tuned till the end of this event to find out if you get the answers right. Now, before we begin our event, here's an opening remarks from Bapak Leo Jo, Assistant Cultural Affairs Officer, U.S. Embassy, Jakarta.
Halo, selamat malam, selamat datang di Ad America. And first of all, I wanted to thank our partners at American Film Showcase who connected us with our guest of honor, the filmmaker Renae Bluitt, and that helped make this entire event possible. I also want to thank our moderator, Uli Putri, who is the recipient of a Fulbright scholarship and now a lecturer in contemporary media analysis and media law at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And most of all, I wanted to thank Ms. Renae Bluitt for this film, which was hopefully enlightening and inspiring to those of you that had an opportunity to watch it. And we received a message, all of us at the U.S. Embassy, just several days ago from our new Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. It was a message in celebration of Black History Month. And I just wanted to give a short quote from what our Secretary of State said. He said, "February is Black History Month, a time to learn about and honor events and people often left out of the history books. But Black History Month is not only about the past, it's also about the here and the now." And that's what I thought was especially powerful about the film. She Did That. It's about Black women who are making history in America right now. And if you've seen the film, you learn that Black women in America control 1.3 million businesses in America, and they start businesses at 6 times the national average. So as Ms. Bluitt says at the beginning of the film, and paraphrasing the great American musician Andre 3000, women entrepreneurs are the prototype and really the model for the future of America, and I think also the future of Indonesia. So thank you again, and enjoy the discussion.
All right, thank you so much, Bapak Leo Jo, for the opening remarks. Now, without further ado, please welcome our moderator for today, Mbak Uli Putri, Communication Media Studies Lecturer at University of Colorado, Boulder.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us here. I would like to introduce our speaker of the night, which is Ms. Renae Bluitt, the creator and executive producer of the documentary She Did That. Welcome, Renae.
Thank you. Welcome. Well, not welcome to you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to be able to chat about this documentary, this amazing story that you're telling through this documentary. Would you mind just sharing with us, like, the creative process behind this documentary? Like, I noticed that you started with your blog, and then how is it from your blog you created this? This She Did That.
Sure. So in 2009, I launched a blog titled In Her Shoes. And the purpose of that blog was to give readers a chance to walk in the shoes of these incredible Black women entrepreneurs. Did that for many years. I did a lot of interesting and powerful Q&A interviews with women who are building brands and building legacies here in the US. I hosted events. But in 2015, I really felt like I was ready to continue telling these stories, but explore it through a new medium. And so after hosting a photography exhibition featuring Black women entrepreneurs, I came up with the idea to produce a film. And I had never produced a film before, but anyone who knows about New York City, you know that you're just one degree of separation from the people who are doing whatever it is you want to do creatively on the highest level. So I talked to people in my tribe, in my community, told them about how I wanted to create this documentary. And before you know it, I had a team in place who was super excited to help me bring this vision to life. And so we started filming in 2016.
Wow, that's amazing. So how long did it take for you to do the interviews and basically film all the materials?
Sure. So we started filming in late 2016, and the film premiered here at Essence Festival, which is the largest festival for Black women in the world, on July of 2018. So a little over a year and a half. But I really dedicated my life to it. You know, prior to getting into filmmaking, I was a PR consultant. I had a consultancy here in New York City, working with a lot of Black women-owned brands too. And so I stepped away from that to focus on the film, and we really just got it done. We traveled around the country. We talked to women just from different walks of life, different stages of their businesses, and really got to put together some powerful stories.
Yeah, that was amazing stories that you get to tell. And I do want to invite the viewers who are joining us through Instagram, through YouTube, to actually type in your questions, because this is a great opportunity to talk to to the creator, right, and the executive producer. And so if you have any questions, feel free to type in, and I'll be more than happy to ask those questions to Renae. In the meantime, I do want to ask you about the selections of the women entrepreneurs that you get to include in this documentary. So how did you pick and choose who get to tell their stories?
So that was actually one of the toughest parts of the process, because as you can imagine, I've been blogging about Black women entrepreneurs for almost a decade at that point. So I had a lot of relationships, a lot of women that I had been in communication with over the years with really intriguing stories, but I narrowed it down with a couple of factors. One was, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk to women from different industries. So I picked one woman in beauty, one woman who was in finance, one woman who was a writer, and then, you know, a woman who had a restaurant. Like, all these different segments were represented. But then also I wanted to talk to women who were approaching entrepreneurship from different angles. So, for example, Lisa Price of Carol's Daughter, at that time, she had been in business for like 23, 24 years. So just imagine, she started her business long before we just had immediate access to our customers through our phone. So she told the story of literally going to markets, going to trade shows, and just engaging the customer face to face, which is something that we do now. Well, prior to the world changing a bit, but we do, but not as often because we're leaning on social media. And she didn't have that access. And so I just wanted people who, are starting their businesses in this era of the digital and virtual space to know what she had to go through to get her brand to this global level. I wanted to also make sure that in addition to telling these business stories, we look at the humanity of these women, because we're more than just the brands we're building, right? And so I wanted to make sure that the women I selected would be vulnerable, would be open, would be honest, and be ready to share the parts of their lives that weren't so pretty and weren't so glossy and fabulous. I wanted people to understand that in addition to building these brands, these women are dealing with life. One of the women in the film shared her experience with being in a physically, emotionally, and financially abusive relationship. But that is what led to her launching her business, My Fab Finance, which was all about empowering women to get their financial house in order so they wouldn't have to stay in an abusive relationship longer than they need to, the way she did. So the why behind a lot of these businesses was really interesting. And so that was a huge part of what determined who would be in the film and whose stories we dove into.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I think every woman that you invite to tell or share their story here, they definitely bring something that is, interesting, something that we could learn from watching the interviews. So I want to go back to the founder of Carol's Daughter.
Sure.
I find that her story was particularly fascinating when she was sharing about the way she was perceived as selling out when she sold her business to L'Oreal, right? So I was like thinking about it, that the people who actually give that label mostly is it within your own community, or do you think it's somewhere, someone outside of the community who gave that label? Would you mind sharing?
Sure. It's definitely mostly within our community. And as Lisa mentioned, it happens for a few reasons. One, we as a community take great pride in being able to say that this hair care product or this lotion was created by a Black person or a Black woman. And so to be able to go into her stores, in New York City and around the country and just have that pride, like this is a Black owned business. Once she was acquired by L'Oreal, I think that people felt like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to say this is a Black owned business anymore. But it's like, come on, it is still founded by a Black woman. You can't take that away. And also the fact that her business, which was launched in her kitchen right here in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, was now acquired by L'Oreal, which at the time was the largest cosmetics brand in the world. Come on, like how can you be mad at that? That's a huge feat. And so because a lot of our businesses don't make it to that point, like they don't reach that point of acquisition with such a large corporation, it's something that a lot of us don't understand. But I would encourage people to do your research. Like Lisa Price had filed bankruptcy a couple of times. She was, really struggling to get financing and capital, which is something we talk about in the film. There are so many struggles that are happening behind the scenes that if a L'Oreal wants to acquire you, this is now opening up the world, for your business and giving you so many more resources for you to be able to create a better product for your customer and just have a wider reach. So it's a beautiful thing, especially if you are trying to think about your exit strategy, which is something that a lot of people don't consider. You're not going to be this entrepreneur forever.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also interested in the story of the founder of My Fab Finance, because she shared about how she understands that it's not only selling herself through her website, but actually being able to find different streams of revenues
Yes.
by being a speaker, by giving a one-on-one session with people who wants to basically reinvent the way they spend and the way they invest their money. So
Yes.
that is very inspiring. Do you see that in yourself as well? That when you open up your blog, that it turns out that it's not stopping you only in your blog, but you can do so many different things as well.
Absolutely. It's so important that not even just entrepreneurs, but it's important that we all look at how to have multiple streams of revenue, right? Especially with what's happening in the world today, the economy, things that really just changed overnight. If you are relying on one stream of revenue, anything can happen, and then you're without income to support yourself, your family, your lifestyle. So the thing I love about Tanya Rapley is that, like she said in the film, in addition to her blog, she's doing quite a few other things. And what's beautiful is that even since the film, she's expanded. She was an investor in a cannabis business. She now is the owner. She purchased a business called Club Loofah, which is like a monthly loofah sponge subscription, beauty and wellness brand for women. She does a lot of speaking. She had her book. Like, she has so many streams of revenue. She's really like multiple streams of revenue goals. But it's important because if one thing slows down, you know that you have money coming from another direction. You can nurture that. And I think that that type of assurance in your income is a beautiful thing, and it can give you so much peace at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, when you first started in her shoes, did you imagine of all the things that you're able to do from creating that blog?
No, if someone would have told me in 2009, when I was sitting at my dad's dining room table, starting this blog, explaining to him what a blog even was, that I was going to have a film, years later on Netflix, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, was Netflix even a thing in 2009? I don't even remember, but I feel like it was like a blockbuster moment back then.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
But I mean, it's been a beautiful journey. And the thing that I love about it is, from the blog to the event, to the photography exhibition I mentioned, and now to the film, all of the work is centering Black women entrepreneurs, and all of it is storytelling. And so that's one thing I would just encourage people to consider when you're doing things and you're on this journey in your career. Just know that what you're doing now is preparing you for the next step, whether you know what that next step is or not. So I am forever grateful to the blog for all of the doors that it's opened. And I'm just actually happy that I started that conversation around entrepreneurship and, Black women building brands long before it kind of became trendy. Because right now in America, it's a really popular conversation. But I'm proud to say that I started having that conversation years ago when most bloggers were focused on, topics like fashion and entertainment and gossip and things like that. I always knew that I wanted to create a platform for Black women to tell their stories.
That's awesome. And I do have a question here from Brenda Garcia. She said, "Hi, Renae. The film is so inspiring. It's great to see women entrepreneurs doing what they love, what they're passionate about. You all remind me of Madam C.J. Walker's. Who or what inspired you to start this project?"
You know what? There are a couple inspirations. One would definitely have to be Oprah Winfrey. I love the way Oprah's entire platform is about people's stories and humanity. And I also really respect the fact that over the years, Oprah has never been limited in, where she takes her career. She had the show, she had the network, she had, all this work that she's doing. But all of it kind of goes back to her overall mission. And so that really inspired me to know that you can be multi-passionate, you can play in different lanes and, do what you love and experience all of these ways to tell your stories and do your work. And so she's definitely an inspiration. Also, Ava DuVernay.
Oh, yeah.
Ava DuVernay is an amazing filmmaker and storyteller, and she also started her career in PR. And so, she was
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, she was a publicist before she got into film, and so that just really inspired me to know that it's possible. And PR is storytelling. It's storytelling for brands, which is essentially what I'm still doing with, the blog and the film.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Of course, Oprah. And like she inspired so many women, not only Black women, but other colored women as well, to, basically just go out there and get it. Whatever it is that you're setting your goal or heart to. I do have a questions though. And this is about the founder of the Lip Bar. She was sharing a story about how she got rejected in Shark Tank, right?
Yes.
I was so surprised when I heard that. Do you think that would ever happen after, all the Black Lives Matter and now, like you say, talking about, Black power and all that becomes something of a trend nowadays? What do you think about that?
I would hope that a conversation like that wouldn't happen now. As you know, from what you saw in that clip, it's less about them not understanding what she was creating and why this product would be worth the investment, and just more about the language that was used that was really just horrible and insensitive and just inappropriate. I would hope that they wouldn't operate in that way. She actually recently, like within the last few months, did an Instagram live with Damon. I forgot his last name, but he's one of the sharks, the African-American guy. I didn't get to tune in, but they kind of had a reunion, so to speak, post that experience. And hopefully they were able to come to some common ground. Although he wasn't the one that was saying the very disrespectful things, I really felt a way that as a Black man, he sat there while that happened and didn't defend these women from his community. So I'm curious to know what that conversation was, but I would hope that they wouldn't go there now. But, ignorance doesn't have a timestamp on it. And sometimes people just operate as who they are, no matter what conversations are happening around them.
That is so difficult to hear. I know that's the reality, but it's like so difficult to hear. And I was thinking that you said about how you started in 2009 writing a blog that, specialized in amplifying this Black female voices. So I do want to hear, what is the difference that you observe and that you can feel from 2009 to 2021? How are the conversations changing? Like, are there anything that you can share with us?
Sure. Oh my gosh, the conversation has evolved so much and in such a beautiful way. For one, the numbers, just the sheer numbers of Black women entrepreneurs has catapulted significantly. When we were filming, Black women were launching businesses 6 times the national average. Now it's 10 times the national average. Yes, and it could be more than that at this point. So there are more women, Black women in this space. I noticed in 2009, a lot of the women founders that I was speaking to were in like the beauty category, fashion, things like that. I'm finding that we're expanding into spaces that we wouldn't normally be seen in, like tech, which is a beautiful thing to see. And so I love that we're kind of stepping outside of what people would traditionally assume women would even be into. We're having more honest conversations about the process and the experience. I think that back then, we weren't on Instagram yet, but a lot of the challenges and obstacles that people were facing back then, I don't know if we were as free with sharing it for other women to learn from our mistakes and our experiences. I think we live in a time now that is all about like transparency. People are looking, founders are rock stars now. And so if you're a founder of a brand that someone loves and they're following you on Instagram, they not only want to see your wins, they want to see what's happening behind the scenes that may not be so glamorous. They want you to be more vulnerable. I think the time that we're in is good for that because it allows people to see everything that, entrepreneurship entails. And that was one of the main reasons why I created She Did That. Because at the time I felt like we were mostly just sharing our highlight reel on social and people who were aspiring entrepreneurs weren't getting an honest and a real look at what it takes and the grit and the resilience and the stick-to-itiveness that it takes to build a brand. So I'm seeing a lot of that in terms of funding. I'm seeing the trend of a lot of women realizing that no one's coming to save us. When you look at funding from venture capitalists, only 2% of it goes to women in America, period. 2%. Okay. But then when you look at what Black women are getting, it's a fraction of that, which is basically crumbs. Yeah. And so instead of just sitting around like, oh, we're not getting funding, a lot of women are now pulling each other up by the bootstraps, creating grants, creating funding opportunities, and investing in each other's businesses. And another thing that I'm seeing that's happening, which is really beautiful, we talk about it in the film, is just the collaborations that are happening. A lot of brands are partnering with other brands to create these, whether it's beautiful products or experiences. And it just really gives us more power and reach and influence when we're able to kind of like join forces and show the beauty of what can happen when we're really supporting each other.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I took away when I was watching the documentary, that phrase of collaboration before competition. And I think that's awesome because for a lot of, for a very long period, we think it's a zero-sum game that if I'm successful, then I want to protect my success and I just don't want you to take away what I have. And so that approach is definitely a lot more community-based and making everybody feels like we got each other's back.
Yes.
Do you feel like that that kind of the same spirit helps you to be where you are right now?
Absolutely, yes. A resounding yes. Like the film would not exist if it weren't for women I know, for example, in corporate America, in decision-making positions of power, who, when I presented the idea of the film for investment opportunities and sponsorships, they were like, yes, we support you. We want to collaborate. We want to be a part of this conversation and this movement. The film wouldn't exist if it weren't for those women. And so that spirit of collaboration, that spirit of supporting your sisters is absolutely why I'm even sitting here today.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And at the same time, there's also that very controversial statement that, was it Lovey, who wrote about why she supported nepotism? Yeah, what do you think about that?
I mean, Lovey is also a bit of a humorist too. So it's like, I think she really meant that, but I think it's necessary because, like I said, when you think about what's happening with venture capitalists and, investments we're not getting, we have to be about that. We have to insulate our dollars. We have to insulate our support of each other because in a lot of ways, there are women who feel like we're all we have, And so with that said, I do think that Lovey may be onto something.
That, in order for us to to have each other's back, we also need to make sure that we embrace and protect each other. Is that it? I think it's more into that spirit. Yeah. And I'm really hoping that it's also not specifically only the Black women, but also women of colors.
Absolutely. And just women in general. As women, we do face a lot of challenges. I just think that, this film, because there are some people, like some of the feedback I've received about the film from men, and not men in my community, but some of the feedback that we've received is like, well, why does this have to be just about Black women? And it's like, why not? Like we have very specific experiences. The way that we do things is very unique. I mean, each culture has its unique way of doing things. Why not tell the story of Black women entrepreneurs? And if someone in Indonesia wanted to create a film about women there and their entrepreneurial journeys, why not? Because the way that we do things could be so different. And I think that giving someone kind of an up close and personal look at how people in other cultures operate is a powerful thing, and can really bring us together and have more respect for our differences, but also a greater appreciation for the things we have in common.
Mm-hmm. I find it funny that they're the one who's giving that feedback, right? Because for a very long time, most stories are all about them. Yes. And
it's like you've been the main subject of every film since the beginning of time. Can we have a moment?
Yeah, for sure. You have your spotlight and take it. Because I think one of something that stuck in my mind is the saying of this Nigerian author, Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi. She was saying that, stories matter, all kind of stories matter. So if there's only one story, or there's only many stories about one subject, that's the only one that we know, right? So now it's the time for us to have so many different stories from so many different subjects.
Absolutely.
So it's beautiful that.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I think that more diversity in the storytelling can kind of help bridge the gap between different cultures and different communities, because a lot of people who, like, if you don't understand something, then I think it's easier to be able to say things that could be hurtful or disrespectful to someone in that community. I think understanding and exposure kind of helps you to realize that we're all just human,
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. I was just looking at the list of questions. So many questions coming in, and I'm gonna read those questions to you. Sure. All right. So there is this question from Peter Alexander Dahan. He asks, "Hi Renae, how do you see the future of Black women entrepreneurs? And does the BLM movement last summer help the cause of African American people in general, and especially Black women entrepreneurs?"
That's a really great question. In terms of the future, I definitely see more of us going into entrepreneurship. I think that now, especially with what has happened in America over the last year, a lot of the cracks in our system have been exposed, especially on a corporate level. When we were doing research on why so many Black women were starting their own businesses, a lot of us were starting businesses because we didn't feel like we fit into corporate environments. We didn't feel welcome. We felt underappreciated, underpaid, undervalued. And so with everything kind of being exposed right now, I think a lot of people are realizing, sorry, New York is New Yorking in the background. You hear it?
Getting busy there.
At 7:30 in the morning, which is crazy. But I think that a lot of women will continue to decide that, hey, if I'm investing this much time and energy and love and like creativity and innovation into someone else's business, imagine what type of success I could have if I invest in myself in this way. So I definitely see the numbers of Black women entrepreneurs continue to skyrocket. In terms of the question about the BLM movement, I think it's a beautiful movement. I think it's very necessary. In terms of how it's impacting Black women-owned businesses, it depends on when we're thinking. So like last year, right after the George Floyd murder, there was a huge increase in the interest in buying Black, right? And so if you think about these small businesses, if you think about like a candle maker who was like doing individual orders, pouring candles in her home, and then all of a sudden the whole world is, you know, placing orders, your server is crashing. It's a beautiful thing that you're getting all this attention, but it's also overwhelming. Like people that I know who were startup businesses and makers literally were fulfilling orders for months after that, which is fine if people were patient and if people understood that you're ordering from a small business, not Amazon. You know, even Amazon wasn't delivering the next day the way they normally would through this whole experience. So it's a blessing, but it's also a lot for a lot of small businesses because, as we talk about in the film, a lot of these businesses weren't operating with like a full staff anyway. You know, they were operating with very lean resources because of lack of funding. So if you look at the influx of business like overnight and what that means for one person and a person during a pandemic, it's not like this person could call all their friends over like, hey, come help me fulfill these orders. You want to be safe. You want to protect your family. And so I saw a lot of businesses go through that and just really have to step back and like look at their systems, look at how they're fulfilling orders, how to become more efficient, shipping costs, shipping delays. You know, a lot of that was happening over here. So the BLM movement and the increased interest in buying Black is a beautiful thing. But I just want people to know, one, when you're buying Black, you're not doing us a favor. You're getting a product that is made with love. You're getting something that's unique. You're getting something that, you know, when you wear it, you're going to turn heads. Like, you're not doing us a favor. This is not a charity, you know, moment. You are purchasing something from a business. And even when I think about the way that we position those statements, like supporting Black-owned businesses, you're buying from a Black-owned business. We would never say we're supporting Tesla or we're supporting Apple. You're buying from these businesses. It's a transaction. It's a business transaction. And so I just think that, you know, even with the BLM movement and all of the attention it's bringing on Black businesses, I want us to be mindful of how we engage with those Black businesses and, you know, extend some empathy and grace. Like, these are small businesses that are suddenly getting the light and the attention that we deserved years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for answering that questions. I do have another questions from at Tarantula. Hi, Renae. That's a great documentary. It really opened my eyes to something I would never experience as a man. My question is, how would you expect men to help with all the privilege that we have to build a more healthy and inclusive business ecosystem?
Wow. Love that question. And I'm hearing it more when we're having these conversations, men who are like, what can we do? You know, let's start with the biggest challenge that Black women entrepreneurs are facing, which is, like I said, funding. So if you're in a position to financially invest in a Black woman-owned business, let's start there. If you're in a position where there could be a partnership developed that would really help to build up a Black women-owned business, that's awesome. Make a concerted effort when you're shopping throughout the year to think about, which Black women-owned businesses are creating, the products that you want. We don't always have to go to the mass retailers. Shopping small is a beautiful thing. Spread the word. One thing that does not cost anything and we all have access to is social media. If you purchase something from a Black woman-owned business and had an amazing experience, whether it's from delivery or the product itself, write a review, share that with your social community, because that share will more than likely result in clicks from your community and then more purchases and just increased awareness and visibility for that brand, which is priceless.
Yes, for sure. So, men, you can help if you're in the positions of privilege and you're able to provide funding. That would be awesome. But if not, yeah, just amplifying the business, the Black women's business, is definitely going to help getting their products out there, products or services.
Yes.
I do have another questions from Eldia Purvita. She is asking, even now, are there still many big obstacles for Black women to be a successful entrepreneur? And how about the struggle of other colored women in the US? How about Asian American women, for instance?
The struggle is not over. I think that there is more awareness of the struggle and more, like I said before, open conversations about the struggle, but it's still happening. Even when we think about like the BLM movement and, the violence that takes place here in our communities sometimes, it's still happening. I think that as long as we're here, it will be happening. I think our job is to, just have more open conversations about it, put resources in place so those things aren't happening as frequently. So the struggles still exist. The struggles still exist for women across the board, whether you're Black, white, green, or yellow. The world of business is dominated by men. And it is in this country primarily dominated by white men. And I think that there's a disconnection, if you even think about what's happening in this country now in terms of women's empowerment, less than 100 years ago, a woman couldn't buy a home here without a man's name being on the mortgage, that's crazy. So the fact that we're owning businesses now, there are a lot of things that we weren't able to do, like I said, less than 100 years ago without a man being involved. So if you think about that type of patriarchy, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, for sure, for all of us.
For sure, for both men and women. And that actually connects to this next question from at Rimsky00. Hi, Renae, great documentary. What do you think the future of Black female entrepreneurs will be like in America?
Like I said, the future is all about entrepreneurship. Where we are in the world has definitely made people realize that, if they didn't realize it before, that the thought of, retiring in a certain job was like the dream, or being with a certain company for years. That company could fold tomorrow, or that company could have to significantly downsize, which we've seen recently, as a result of what's happening in the world and with the economy. And where does that leave you? Where does that leave your family? So a lot of people, a lot of women, but a lot of people just across the board are really looking at entrepreneurship as a pathway to freedom, financial security, and building wealth.
For sure. I'm actually, and this is going to be my questions, I'm interested in going back to some of the comments you made about how many of these Black women entrepreneurs do not know how to ask for help. And so most of the time they do everything themselves and they get burned out. And a lot of them don't have paid help as well. So,
Right.
do you see that as obstacles for Black women entrepreneurs? In particular.
It's a huge obstacle. And it starts with, everything about who we are connects to what we saw growing up as children. I know for me, I saw my grandmother being this strong Black woman. I saw my mom, who came to America from Trinidad, with not a lot of family support around her, doing a lot of things for herself. I personally struggle with asking for help. I think a lot of us see our role as women as like nurturers and providers. And the thought of asking for help for a lot of us feels like a sign of weakness. But now we're realizing that that does not serve us, especially if you're running a house, running a business. There's no way you can do all of this alone. And you're really stronger and more impactful when you have support from people who care about you and who want to see you, doing well. And so the thought of the superwoman syndrome is what we talk about in the film. And I think especially now with, the pandemic and women being at home, running their businesses, managing their homes, their families, and like doing all of these things at once, we're realizing that we need help and it's okay to ask for help. And I think another beautiful thing I'm seeing is women realizing that we're bigger than what we produce, which is why for the film, it was important for me to have the women not just talking about the brands they're building, but just some of their life experiences, because I know even for me, prior to the world shifting the way that it did in 2020, my life was just all about traveling for the film and what am I creating next and all these great events and, just always winning and always doing something. And so when the world slowed down and I had to be still, I had to really think about who am I outside of my work? And so with us really dealing with that too, I think we're understanding that one, we're humans who need rest. We're not machines. We're more than what we produce. And so I'm enjoying seeing more women being intentional about self-care, intentional about resting, intentional about knowing that not every season in your career or your life has to be a season of like bearing fruit. It can be a season also of just planting seeds and just enjoying life, because all of this could disappear overnight. And if all that you have to say is that you built this incredible business, then what about the relationships that, you could have nurtured during this time? So that's what I see as like a good conversation I'm happy to see us having now.
Yeah, and that's awesome because especially during this pandemic, it's so easy for us to be anxious about everything. So like what you say, being intentional about the fact that we don't have to always run. We can actually stop and just breathe and take a moment to rest and nurture ourselves. So that's great. Speaking about women, there's also another question from Brenda Garcia, who says that more often than not, we women second guess ourselves when we want to start something. What advice do you have for the woman out there who's dealing with self-doubt?
So there is a meme that circulates quite frequently on my feed on Instagram, which is basically saying we need to enter every situation with the confidence of a mediocre white man. And it just cracks me up every time.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, men do not stop and think about if they are qualified for something. If they want it, they go after it. And there are a lot of people doing things that we would want to do with probably far less experience and like credentials as a lot of women have. And so I would say a couple of things. If you want to even use me as an example, prior to She Did That, I had never produced a film, But for some reason, in that moment, I had all of this confidence that I could make it happen. I put together the right team. I got the right resources. And so the fact that I had never made a film wasn't as important as the passion that I was pouring into it. So if there is self-doubt, I would say, like, get out of your own way, because I believe that if that seed has been planted in your mind to do something, like, that is your gift to the world. And I feel like if you're keeping it to yourself, you're not honoring God. You're not honoring the universe. This gift is something that is meant to be shared. And I deal with, I think most people deal with self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all these things, but it's like, you don't want this idea or this thing that you want to be immersed in, that you want to bring to life, to be a what if. And so think about that, put one step in front of the other, make it happen. And like I said, go into it with the confidence of a mediocre white man. You will be okay.
Okay. That is sad to say. That's very true.
Yeah, and and it's not to shade, but it's just so funny, because it's like, hey, I mean, think about our president that we just got rid of. That's not eligible for the job, but the confidence that man had, it's a whole nother story. But like, a real example of, like, if you want to do something, you can go for it, because clearly it's not about what's on paper. It's about, the drive and the passion behind it.
And the confidence that we need to instill in ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Because the time is approaching the end, I do have 2 questions for you. The first one is, what does Black History Month mean to you? And I do want to touch with that, because that's the theme of this month.
So I have, I'm not even going to say it's an unpopular opinion about Black History Month. I think it's a very popular opinion now. Black History Month needs to be Black History Year. Black history is American history. So when we start looking at these months, and particularly for Black History Month, it's the shortest month of the year, to celebrate a community and a culture that really built this country, 28 days is not enough. I feel the same way about Women's History Month coming up in March. Women are making history every single day. Why do we only celebrate it, with all of this intention for a month? I would love to see us get rid of the months and just be more intentional about learning about these different cultures and communities, celebrating, uplifting, partnering with women, with Black people all year round. A month is not enough.
Yeah. And I totally support that for both Black History Month as well as the Women History Month. Yeah. And finally, one last question is that, what's next for you? Do you have any exciting project that you can share with us?
Yes, I'm so happy to share a couple things. We're in early pre-production for the next installment of She Did That. We've already done some interviews at the end of last year. We have a sizzle that we're ready to start pitching. But also, to keep the conversation going in the audio space, I am launching a podcast called the She Did That podcast, where I'll be, same thing, talking to women, entrepreneurs that we all know and love, but then also introducing the world to women whose businesses are new and they have really powerful stories to tell. So I'm excited to get my feet wet in the podcast space. To the woman who had the question about, like, self-doubt, I've had those self-doubt moments, because it's like, you're going from the blog to the film to now a podcast. But when I really think about all the work, it really just goes back to me wanting to center and celebrate Black women entrepreneurs. And as long as I'm being true to that mission, I will continue exploring it through whatever medium is available to really reach the masses.
That is so exciting. And I wish you the best of luck for both the. So this is like she did that too. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
The plan this time around is for it to be a docu-series. So
cool.
episodes telling these stories as opposed to just one piece.
That's awesome. That way you get to go deep with these voices, right? Yeah. So cool. So thank you so much, Renae, for your time, for being here, for sharing your stories.
These are really great questions. I appreciate all of it. And I'm excited to start my day now. This is a great way to get the day started.
Good. I'm glad. And thank you also at America for inviting us to have these conversations. And so now I'm returning the mic to at America.
All right, thank you so much, Mbak Uli, and also Renae. That was a very inspiring session. We hope to see you again next time. Now, the rest of you, please don't go anywhere, because I have the name of the winner for our social media quiz today. Earlier in this event, I asked you guys, which American president declared February as Black History Month? And the right answer is D, Gerald Ford. And our winner for today is FLXForever from Instagram. Congratulations! As I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this event, Ad America is having a very special activities and we're giving out an iPhone 12 Pro. And how do you participate? You can participate by posting a picture of 10 lines poem of your own authentic creation and post it on your Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and simply tag our social media at AT America. For further information, please visit bit.ly/BHM Express. Now, you may be wondering, how can I develop an awesome idea for a place like this? Easy. You can go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, click create an event, and collaborate with us. All proposals coming to us will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. And while you're on our website, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletters for weekly event updates sent straight to your inbox. Alright everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Goodbye everybody.